Well, hello, and I have a question for you. Do you ever feel like things are just really hard? Whether it's your business is really challenging or your relationship is challenging or you set a goal and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to get healthy," and it's just everything is like it's going through cement. Well, if the answer is yes, you might be sabotaging your success. And there are three ways you might be doing it subconsciously and you're not even aware. My name is Susan Sly. It is Bulletproof Monday. I am a speaker, a podcast host, an entrepreneur, and an NLP certified coach. So, with that, we're going to get into the goods. And I'm so excited to see you here. It's amazing. I see Rial and Judy, Ken. And today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. At the end of the training, I'm going to do some live coaching. So, it gives you the opportunity to ask me questions based on the content. So I do these Bulletproof Mondays every single Monday at 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern Standard Time. If the content is great, I would love to read your comments. I'd love you to share it. And if you have a topic you want me to cover, you can always go ahead and go over to susansly.com and just send me an email at info@susansly.com. Before I get into the content, a couple of quick announcements. So this coming Saturday, I am doing Sales Nirvana in Phoenix, and it's amazing. All of our team is flying in. I've got realtors coming. I've got people in tech coming. I've got personal trainers coming. And I'm going to be doing NLP specific training to help you grow your business and your life. Now, we have closed off the registration, so unfortunately you can't come now, but it's going to be an amazing event. So look for updates on this page. On November 7th, I am going to be doing Business Academy. Business Academy is a 6-week program. It's intense, where I physically teach you how to build an online business without having a tech person charge you over $10,000 to do it. So everything from setting up your sales pages, your CRM, how to write copy using NLP, how to, get your product out there to market. So whether you're a coach and you want to sell a 6-week program, I know how to do that. I've made a lot of money doing that. Or whether you have a physical product, we're going to get you up and running in business. We talk about taxes, things. It's great. It's all like, oh yeah, you can do an online business, but are you talking about taxes and structure and function and all of it? That's what I do. And so that starts on November 7th, and you can check that out. And just so you know, people who subscribe to my list on susansly.com, they get special discounts that no one ever sees on the web. So if you are not a subscriber, I mail you every Tuesday. It's always something good and powerful and relevant, and you will get discounts. And if you like to get discounts and it's not spammy, I'm not going to sales spam you, you can check it out there. So let's get into it. So are you sabotaging your own success? So it's interesting because oftentimes people will go to, say, an event as an example, and they'll get super, super excited. And then suddenly, they're like, I'm going to make all these life changes. And then they get back into their environment and the change doesn't happen. And they start to beat themselves up, and they're like, well, okay, I'm just going to push harder, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And then they find themselves 1 year later at, a same event or maybe another event. They're still making the same amount of money or less. They still look the same. Their health is still the same. And the reality is that you may be, if you're one of those people, subconsciously sabotaging yourself and doing it in ways you don't even realize. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And when Jim Rohn was alive, the great business philosopher, I was doing a speaking event with him, and he always used to say, only 10% of you will become millionaires, and only 10% of you will do anything that I'm telling you to do. So the books I read, the habits to get into. And Jim Rohn was amazing. And the first time I heard him say that, I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a 10%er. So it's my goal in these Bulletproof Mondays to bring you into that upper echelon of percentage and help you build some amazing achieving habits. And it's great to be in the grind and making sales calls and following up and all of that. But if you're sabotaging yourself, then what ends up happening is you attract the wrong clients, or people leave your business. You end up getting frustrated. And if you can relate to any of that, say yes in the chat. And so we want to stop that right now and begin to shift it for you. So the first thing, I always take notes on Mondays. If you ever see me speak live, whether it's in front of 20,000 people or 100 people, I don't use notes very often. But when I do these Mondays, I come and this is where I deliver amazing free training for you. So I always want to take tons of notes and give them to you so I can be on point. So the first thing is, because generally speaking, when I do my own seminars, I'll be training for hours and hours. But when I'm with you guys, it's like 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. Okay, so here's the first thing. We might be sabotaging ourselves visually. So 68% of us are visual learners. And in NLP, when I'm teaching people NLP or I'm doing any of my events, I'm always bringing NLP into it because we hypnotize ourselves literally by what it is that we look at. So when you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling angry, you're feeling any of the emotions that are causing sabotage, often it's because your visual cues are not in alignment with the goals you set for yourself. And so what do I mean by that? So if you're in a work environment right now, you're watching me obviously, but if you're in a work environment, what is it you see when you're making your sales calls, when you're responding to emails, when you're messaging people to set up appointments, when you're trying to get your projects done? That's why I'm not a fan of cubicle culture. I think working in cubicles is like, you might as well be in a coffin. And seriously, company owners who put all their people in cubicles, you need to give your heads a shake. Why are you doing that? We're going to die sometime, and unless we're cremated, we're going to be in a coffin, yet you're going to put working people in coffins. That's why so many of the big companies have these open workspace concepts. And last spring, I visited my friend Randy Garn. He owns a company called Scipio, and Scipio is one of our vendors here at my digital marketing agency. And the way Randy has it set up is that it's all open workspaces. There are picnic tables. It's all like rustic. It's really cool. And then we were at the digital marketer offices in Austin, Texas, and Ryan Dice and Marcus Murphy and those guys. It's all open workspaces. And that is the wave of the future. No one wants to be in a cubicle. And so if your workspace that you're creating is this place that is ultimately depressing and is sending you visual cues of death, how do you think you're showing up? How do you think you feel about that job? How does it make you feel when in terms of wanting to make calls? So one of the first things you want to do with anything visually is make sure it's stimulating and is going to cause you to have the emotional response required to do what it is you need to do. And so one of the things, my birthday's tomorrow, just, FYI, I'm turning 46. And so yesterday, one of the things that I did is I made a new vision board for myself. And I was like, it's my birthday. I really want to crush it for the rest of 2018 and going into 2019. And one of my companies, we're on track to double our overall sales of all of 2017, which is awesome. And I know I have to keep myself aligned. So when I'm at my physical offices here in Phoenix, when I look out, I face a glass window right now. So when I look out at that glass window, I see a cross that, I'm a Christian, just an FYI. And, I see a cross. That was something that was handmade for me. It's very beautiful. It's very inspiring. Then I have a sign that I see. It says, realize how good you really are. Then I'm just looking at this stuff now. I have a portable vision board. So whatever I'm looking at when I'm working is highly stimulating, and it's sending me visual cues that say, produce, stay in faith, go for it, Susan. You've got this. You can do this. And then to my right, I have a big whiteboard. And right now on the whiteboard, it says, always make it fabulous. So whatever's happening, always make it fabulous. And Diana, who's our director of operations today, she gave me this shirt. And it says, whatever happens, always make it fabulous, which is our company motto, right? So it's all of these things for me have to be visually stimulating. It's the same thing for you. Even if you do work in a cubicle right now, I pray to God you get out of that cubicle. And as I build my company, if I ever have cubicles, someone needs to tell me, like, Susan, remember when you did that Facebook Live and you were like, no cubicles, right? So one of the things is whatever you're looking at, make it stimulating. And there are people who say you shouldn't have stuff on your desk. I totally disagree. I don't like clutter. I read the book Organize Your Life. It is a registered trademark. I own it. but you don't want to have stuff on your desk that sends the confusing messages. So whatever is going to anchor you in why you are doing what you're doing. So if it's a photo of your family or your fiance, or maybe your dog buddy or whoever it is, vision boards do work because they're sending you visual cues that are going into your conscious brain and then going down into the subconscious that say, hey, you know what? If you make that extra sales call, you will be able to go on that vacation to Disney. Or if you make that extra sales call, you will be able to, pay off your student loan debt or whatever it is going to be for you, right? So it's always making sure visually, because that's 68% of all of us, that whatever it is stimulating us in the right way. So that's one way you might be creating some chaos for yourself and subconsciously sabotaging yourself, is whatever you're looking at when you're working is not visually stimulating in the direction you want to go. Hopefully that makes sense. And I always say when I teach Organize Your Life, and my next class is starting in January, Organize Your Life for Entrepreneurs, that a cluttered environment creates a cluttered mind. So it is also important, you don't want to sabotage yourself when you sit down at your desk, that making sure you're not looking at a bunch of like tchotchke, really, that you're, whatever it is, it's very calm, very clear, very, again, very a catalyst to these positive emotions that you want to feel. And so there's, as you know, there's been a big resurgence. I was at Michael's yesterday. Michael's, I don't know, I could be in there for hours, and two of my kids have projects, so we go to Michael's, and they're starting to sell signs like Hobby Lobby does. You can do anything you dream big, and you're seeing more merchants, whether it's Wayfair or Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever, even Target, selling all of these positive signs and things, because we're craving it. We're craving someone to be our cheerleader. We're craving someone to tell us what it is we can, really be, do, and have. And there was a couple that I mentored, and I went to their house. It was their previous house, and they started a network marketing business while they were both working full time. She was an attorney. He was a police officer. Every room you went into, they had positive, those little signs, positive, uplifting, motivating. They had their vision board on their ceiling in their bedroom. They, the big check, all of it. When Jack Canfield first initially wanted to make $100,000, he wrote out the $100,000 check. He put it up on his ceiling. Jack endorsed my first book, The Have It All Women. It's a great story, of how he did this. And it's because from Buckminster Fuller to Jim Rohn to whomever, everyone has told us that whatever we see and whatever is in our direct line of sight is going to influence us. And what are you choosing to have in your direct line of sight? That's a question I have for you. The second way we might be subconsciously sabotaging ourselves is what it is we're hearing and what it is we're touching. I'll get to that. So, auditory learners, there are people who, when you tell them something, they remember it forever. So if your partner is an auditory learner, they're going to bring up stuff like you said in 1995. They'll be like, in 1995, you told me you didn't want to be married to me. Like, they remember everything that they hear. And so even though you may not primarily be an auditory learner, in NLP we like to categorize the learning style you have, one thing is true, is whatever you're hearing is influencing you. So even for the event that I'm putting on Saturday, I met with our AV guy, and we spent 3 hours hand-picking songs for the event. Every song has to have a motivational undertone. Every song has to have a motivational title. We were looking at the beats per minute, making sure that as we're managing people's emotions, because NLP, even though it's for like a business event, it can be very emotional, that we're managing people's emotions through mood. The top DJs in the world, they can have you bored to tears, or they can have you on the dance floor, literally, like gyrating even though you don't dance. And so Saturday night, I was actually at my church in Montel Jordan, who did This Is How We Do It. He was preaching Saturday night, and he was talking about this fact that, the best musicians in the world, there's a lot of subconscious messaging in their songs. And, for those of you who are parents, what are your kids listening to? For yourself, what are you listening to? And if you're not paying attention to the music your kids are listening listening to or the music you are listening to, you want to be very cautious. So, in NLP, you always want to get into what we call a peak emotional state. And one way we do that is with music. And so, if I'm not going to sing for you, but I'll give you an example. Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive, right? So when I was going through a really horrible time in my life in 2000, I would listen to that song over and over and over again. First I was afraid, I was petrified, blah, 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 right? And I was like, yeah, I will survive. I'm strong, I'm tough. And I remember meeting Gloria and just thanking her. I was on a call with her. I was like, Gloria, I cannot thank you enough. And she's like, Susan, I hear that all the time, right? So for me personally, knowing that music and sound is going to be sending messages from my conscious mind to my subconscious. When I'm in the car, I'm listening to specific music. Now, this is my choice. Like always uplifting. I have playlist. Right now I'm listening to a lot of Toby Mac songs. I listen to Run DMC from the 80s, Rev Run, because it triggers these emotions of me running track in Canada and being nationally ranked, and that I was tough and I was strong. So make a playlist for yourself on your phone and make sure you've got the, whatever it is, like I'm in my power playlist, and whatever it has on it, like Snap, I've got the power or whatever. And it's so important, because when you start listening to things with subconscious messages that tell you it's okay to always be depressed, or it's okay to be looking at women when you're married, no, it's not okay. And so be very mindful of that, especially what your kids are listening to. And the third way you might be sabotaging yourself is kinesthetically. So in NLP, the smallest percentage of people are kinesthetic learners. They have to touch things, but we are all situationally kinesthetic. And what I mean by that is, especially, I know some of you, when you go to the store, let's say you go into Nordstrom or Holt Renfrew or wherever it is, and before you buy something, you have to touch it. It's like you can't buy that thing unless you have a physical kinesthetic experience with it. That's situationally kinesthetic. And our kinesiology, how we're moving our body, is either influencing us positively or it's sabotaging our success. And Amy Cuddy, who is brilliant, she has one of the most watched TED Talks in the world, PhD, incredible woman. She did clinical studies, and she found when people stood up, like Wonder Woman, they call it, they scored higher on tests than those who didn't. So sit up right now, or stand up right now, wherever you are, and be strong. Feel how you are in your body. Years ago, I studied jujitsu and Aikido, and there were certain ways we stood in martial arts to be in our power, right? And if you saw me as an example, when I'm coaching cross country for at my son's school, I'm standing in my power, my hands are on my hips, and I'm up because I want those kids to respect me, and they do. When I'm doing a speaking event, the way I walk, the way I hold my body is powerful, because if you're watching me in an audience and I'm all kind of slumped over and stuff, you're not going to listen to me. You're probably going to fall asleep. Just how you hold yourself can either be one of those things. And watch Amy Cuddy's TED Talk. It's a best piece of advice I have for you right now for the kinesiology aspect. How you hold yourself is either supporting your goals or pulling you away from your goals. And one way that you or your children, and I have 5 kids, so I bring that into the mix, because if I'm going to be here and teach you how to be bulletproof in business, I have to keep it real. 5 kids, running 2 businesses, I'm a speaker, podcast show, like all the stuff I've got going on, and it's messy at times. But one thing I make sure I do is pay attention to what my kids are doing. And video games are massively, massively influencing kids and hypnotizing kids, either for success or failure. Because when someone's playing a video game, they've got the visual, they've got the auditory, and they've got the kinesthetic. So if your kids are playing video games where they're literally killing people, and yet your child is having digestive issues and can't sleep, and you're wondering why, and yet they're going to play all these games, whether they're shooting stormtroopers or whatever they're doing, that's subconsciously influencing them. And it's the same thing for you. Some of you are gamers, it's the same thing. Or even if you play a sport, that's either influencing you positively or negatively. And is this resonating for you? So the question I have for you is, how are you either supporting yourself toward where you want to go in your subconscious, or supporting yourself away from where you want to go in your subconscious? And it starts with the following, and I'll summarize, is that you're visually, your cues have to be in alignment with where you say you want to go. That's where vision boards, putting up post-it notes, watching positive movies, all of those things, it's 68% of people, it has to be positive. Wherever you're making calls, even in your death cubicle, it's got to be like, you've got to see something positive. It's got to be anchoring you in where you're going and why you're going there. Auditory cues, the music you listen to, the podcast you listen to. If you listen to my show, I always end it with positive. I keep it positive. You're there to learn. There's nothing scary or negative, or, the world is ending or whatever. And, that's the same kind of thing. It's positive in, right? And then the third way is the kinesthetics of it. So how we're feeling emotionally is related to what it is we're doing with our body. And when we're feeling powerful in our body, we're going to take powerful actions. We're going to make the calls. We're going to do the follow-up. And, we're really going to create the life that we want to live. So hopefully this has been beneficial. I'm going to do something new today, and it's Amy Cuddy, C-U-D-Y. Does anyone have a question? This is your opportunity to be live coached by a millionaire, multimillionaire. Does anyone have a question that I can answer for you today? Go ahead and chat it. Right now, I will take questions for about 3 minutes. If you have a question, if you have a comment that you want to share, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Bruce and Karen. And thank you, Sharon, Shelly, Jean, Dave. Listen to All Greatness Upon Sleeping. I do have positive signs in my house. 6 stars are up on my home, vision boards, all of it. Yeah, in my car. Shelly Jean is like, yes, I'm keeping the positive where I can see it, and then reinforce that, Shelly, with the music you're listening to, what you listen to in the car. Do you get in the car and listen to talk radio, or are you listening to podcasts? Are you listening to, uplifting music? Make an uplifting playlist. It's one of the best pieces of advice I can give you. Just something that has all those songs that, if I start to do, how many of you remember Rocky, seeing Rocky for the first time? And you're like, yeah, I've got this. I own this, right? Like, make your playlist. Eye of the Tiger is another one. Make it stuff that is really uplifting to you, that is going to get you in state. The last thing I want to say, does anyone have any comments or questions? Because I'm going to give you a ninja tip here in a second. Denise says meditation. Yes, 100%. Just be cautious, because people out there who are, maybe giving free meditation downloads and stuff like that are not all trained in meditation. I am. And being an NLP certified coach and trauma recovery specialist, I make sure that whatever it is that I'm saying in those meditations, that I'm really putting into your mind, is to uplift you and send you in the right direction, right? So always just be a little mindful of that, I want to say. Yes. Oh, thank you, Women at Work. I appreciate, yes, listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks these days, says Dave. What do I listen to at the start of the day? Ken wants to know. So Ken, one of the things I do is I heard Tony Hsieh, who is like an entrepreneurial hero of mine. He built Zappos and sold it to Amazon. So Tony spends the first 8 minutes online learning something new. And so for me, when I start my day after, coffee, prayer, meditation, journaling, exercise, when I go into my office before I do social media, I have an elastic on my wrist. This is really funny, just in case one of my girls at cross country forgets a hair elastic. I just noticed that. Anyway, so when I go into my office, the first thing I do is I go and I learn something new. So I'm getting the visual and I'm getting the auditory. And if I'm at my home office, I do weights while I'm doing it. So I'm embedding whatever I'm learning with kinesiology. And so what that does, and this is like high level NLP stuff, and Ken's coming to my event. He's flying from Canada, so he's going to learn it. So I'm doing weights and I'm watching someone, say, whoever it is, Neil Patel. and Neil Patel is going all SEO and he's like telling stuff. So I'm seeing Neil Patel, I'm hearing Neil Patel, and I'm doing a movement to Neil Patel. So what happens is the next time I do that same movement, Ken, it's ingrained in my psyche that there's an associated level of consciousness with this movement. And so I'm going to recall it a lot easier, right? So just as an example. So when I'm in my car, I listen to The Message, I listen to Joel Osteen, I listen to audiobooks, but I don't put on news in my car anymore. There was a period of time that I was listening to a lot of news in the car and I found myself getting anxious. And the same thing during the week, I do not watch anything violent. The most violent I would watch would be like Flip or Flop when they're doing the demo. For me, and again, I used to be a prison guard. I was in law enforcement. I can handle a lot of violence, but the reality is it was affecting my sleep. It was affecting my mood. And so many people look to me to motivate and inspire them. And how can I do that if I'm watching people like hurt other people at night? I just can't. And I'll finish with this, making sure your environment is giving you positive cues, your auditory environment is positive, the movies you watch, video games, podcasts, all of it is positive, positive, positive. It does work. Norman Vincent Peale said the power of positive thinking. Right? So it does really work. And I will say this, much like if you were deciding you were going to really change your body and go on an epic workout program, generally speaking, all exercise specialists agree your body can take about 6 days of intensity, but it needs that day off. And it's the same thing that's true if your muscles are going to recover and grow. It's the same thing that's true with all of this. So yeah, you want to watch, the 300. Do it on a weekend when your sleep won't be as critical. Yeah, you want to listen to 80s metal and, yeah, do it on the weekend when you don't have to make sales calls, when you don't have to do that. Yeah, you want to play whatever video game it is, Assassin's Creed or whatever, do it on a weekend when you don't have to motivate your sales team, and you don't have to show up in the same way, and begin to operate as this other stuff, like 6 days on, 1 day off at the very least, and eventually might get to the point where 7 days you're like, no, I'm not doing any of it. Right? I'm not going to go to that place because I know there is a cost, and there is always a cost for what it is we do. And if we're not showing up and we're not making the money we want, we don't have the relationships we want, we don't have the health we want, chances are you can listen to all the personal development in the world. You can come here every Monday and listen to me. But if your environment is not conducive to what you say you want, you are not very likely to have it. So with that has been today's episode of Bulletproof Monday. And again, I do this every Monday. I read all your comments. If this has been helpful, I would love for you to share it. Again, I would encourage you to go to susansly.com, subscribe for my weekly and easy, and I send out all these awesome tips. And my subscribers get discounts to my events and different things that are cool like that. So with that, love you guys. It's great to see you. Hey, Evelyn, thank you so much, baby girl. And for some of you who are attending the event in Phoenix, Godspeed, safe travels, and I will see you Saturday. Bye, everyone.